My name is Maritta, and the night my husband said my love had no value, something inside me finally went quiet. Not broken. Not defeated. Just quiet in the way a storm becomes silent right before it reshapes the whole coastline. It happened on an evening that should have been ordinary. I came home from work with takeout, exhausted but hopeful. We had been distant for weeks, but I still believed distance was something two people could walk across if they moved toward each other. Evan did not move. He barely looked at me when I set the food on the table. "Why are you doing all this?" he asked. His tone wasn't curious. It was irritated, as if kindness itself inconvenienced him. "Because we're not doing well," I said softly. "I'm trying." He pushed the food away. "Trying doesn't mean anything, Maritta. It doesn't change anything. Your love." He paused, then exhaled like he was bored with his own cruelty. "Your love just isn't valuable." The words didn't hit me all at once. They arrived slowly like ice creeping across glass, making everything inside me ache. Then he added, "I need more than you can offer. More than this." That was when the silence began, deep, steady, dangerous. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I simply watched him pick up his phone and smile at a message he didn't bother hiding from me. A woman's name flashed across the screen. Lena. He stood up, grabbed his jacket and said, "I'll be out for a while. Don't wait up." And for the first time in years I didn't. When the door closed, I sat at the table, staring at the untouched food. The clock ticked. The house felt hollow in a way walls should never feel. But beneath the hurt, beneath the humiliation, something else formed. A clarity sharper than anger. If my presence meant nothing to him, my absence was about to mean everything. Hours later, as I threw away the cold dinner, my phone buzzed with a bank alert. A purchase Evan made at a restaurant he once called too expensive for date night. So he valued someone. Just not me. That night I opened our shared laptop, something I hadn't done in ages. Evan usually kept it with him, but in his rush to leave, he'd forgotten it. And there it was, his email still logged in. Dozens of messages to Lena. Reservations. Gifts. Plans he never made with me. But one thread stopped me cold. She won't notice. She never does. Her absence would probably make things easier. Her absence. Mine. I took a screenshot. Then another. And another. And with every click, that quiet storm inside me grew. By midnight, I had created a folder titled Evidence, Maritta. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I realized something my husband never understood. Love might be priceless, but leaving has value. And soon he was going to learn exactly what mine was worth. Just as I closed the laptop, a new email appeared. One Evan obviously didn't mean for me to see. Subject line. Finalizing the account transfer tomorrow. He wasn't just done with our marriage. He was preparing to erase me financially. I wish I could say the hurt came all at once like a clean break. But betrayal rarely works that way. It arrives in small fractures, soft warnings, strange shadows that you try to explain away because the truth threatens everything you built. That morning I finally stopped explaining. I began looking. After Luca told me my love had no value, something inside me shifted. The words echoed in every corner of the kitchen as he walked out, leaving his half-finished coffee cooling on the counter. A part of me wanted to run after him, demand answers, demand the respect I had earned through years of loyalty. But I didn't. I stood still. Silence reveals more than arguments ever could. An hour later, I noticed the first sign. His second phone, one he claimed was for work emergencies only, buzzed inside the drawer where he'd forgotten it. I shouldn't have touched it. But when someone tells you your heart is worthless, something primal wakes up. The screen lit up with a message preview. Same time tonight? She won't be there, right? My breath caught. Same time tonight. She won't be there. I opened the phone. No lock. No hesitation on his part. He clearly never imagined I'd see it. There were dozens of messages. Some short. Leaving now. Park behind the building. She's still asleep. And others that made my chest tighten so hard I had to sit down. She clings so much. I can't breathe at home. You're the only thing I look forward to. He had rewritten me. Turned me into a burden in someone else's story. Not the woman who stood by him. Not the woman who worked nights to help him pay off his business loan. Not the woman who believed in him so fiercely she forgot to remember herself. The name in the messages was Raya. I recognized it instantly. She worked at the small design firm downtown. A woman who smiled too brightly at him whenever we passed her at the coffee shop. I had laughed about it once. He had laughed too. Now I heard the echo of that laugh differently. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, I opened my laptop and began piecing together dates, messages, and deposits he had made recently. Small ones, irregular ones, amounts that did not match our budget. My hands were steady. My heartbeat wasn't. Then came the second blow. A notification from our shared cloud storage popped up. A folder labeled Apartment Expenses. Apartment. Inside were receipts, furniture orders, rent deposit confirmations, even a digital lease agreement. He wasn't just cheating. He was preparing a new life with her. And he planned to move into it using money from our joint account. My hands shook then. I am human after all. But I didn't collapse. I took photos of everything, stored copies on a private drive, and emailed them to myself. Evidence. Proof. A record of the truth he thought I would never find. When I closed the laptop, one thought rose above the pain. If he believed my love had no value, he was about to learn the value of my absence. That afternoon I called the only person who had never failed me, my childhood friend Lena. When she answered, I didn't speak. She heard my silence and knew. "I'm coming over," she said. "Don't move." Minutes later, we sat in my living room as I showed her everything. She put her hand on mine. "Maritta," she said gently, "you're not losing him. He already lost you. Now you protect yourself." That was the moment I decided. I wasn't going to confront him yet. I wasn't going to warn him. I wasn't going to give away a single piece of my plan. I was going to watch what he did next, and make sure every step he took tightened the rope around his own lies. That evening, Luca texted me. "Working late. Don't wait up." But he didn't know I was already following him. Digitally, quietly, precisely. Straight into the trap he was building for himself. I woke up the next morning with the same sentence echoing in my mind. "Your love is not valuable." The words were small, but they carried the weight of 1,000 secrets. And now that I had stepped away from Maritta the giver, Maritta the rescuer, there was silence around me. Silence that let me finally listen to the truth. I brewed coffee, sat at my dining table, and opened my laptop. I knew that if Leo had spoken those words, he had meant them. And if he had meant them, then he had already acted on them long before I left the house. People do not devalue what they treasure. They only devalue what they are trying to replace. So I began looking. At first it was innocent: phone records, bank statements, shared calendar activity. Nothing dramatic. Nothing explosive. Just the quiet behavior of a man who believed I would never question him. I noticed withdrawals I did not recognize. Restaurant charges in parts of town we never visited. And an unfamiliar pattern. Small amounts sent multiple times to a woman whose name I did not know. Then something stranger. A series of digital receipts from a boutique specializing in imported perfumes and silk scarves. I had never worn either. I preferred simple scents, clean lines, quiet colors. Leo always said that made me predictable. The receipts were dated over the past 6 months. 6 months. I felt the truth rising in my chest like a slow, unwelcome tide. Still, I did not cry. I just sat there, staring at the screen while my heartbeat settled into a steady, focused rhythm. This was not heartbreak. This was awakening. My next step was simple. Confirm the name I kept seeing on the transfers, Alora Maybridge. I typed it into the search bar. A social media profile appeared. She was younger than me by at least 10 years. Long hair. Bright smile. Thousands of photos of restaurants, new purses, vacations. Everything tagged with words like spoil me, little gifts, and my secret life. My stomach tightened, but not from pain, from clarity. I scrolled until I found the first picture with a familiar shadow in the corner. A man's hand with a watch. Leo's watch. The same one he wore when he told me my love had lost its value. It was enough to shake my breath, but I kept going. I opened our shared cloud drive next. Leo never bothered protecting it because I was too emotional to look through old archives. But he forgot one thing: emotional people remember the details others dismiss. Inside the drive was a folder I had never seen before, labeled Work Files 2. My intuition sparked. I opened it and froze. Photos, hotel receipts, screenshots, reservations. None of them labeled. All of them linked to Alora. And all of them covered by a thin veil of Leo's digital confidence, hidden in plain sight. The betrayal was not just emotional. It was financial, calculated, methodical. He had spent thousands over months. Quiet thousands. Disguised thousands. The kind of spending that only becomes noticeable once distance lets you see the empty spaces. I downloaded every file, every receipt, every timestamp. Then I called someone I had not spoken to in years, my childhood friend Evelyn, who now worked as a paralegal. She answered on the second ring. Maritta? Is everything all right? No, I said, my voice steady. But it will be. What happened? I need to know how to document digital evidence properly. And I need your help. There was a short silence. Then, tell me everything. I told her enough to make her inhale sharply. She guided me through the next steps: how to back up the files in multiple places, how to create a verified timestamp record, how to prepare an evidence chain that would hold in court. By the time I finished, I had a folder so organized, so thorough, that it looked like the early sketches of a case file. Not a confrontation. Not an argument. A case. When I closed my laptop, the house was quiet again. But this time the silence felt different. Not empty but steady. Grounded. Focused. Leo thought my absence would inconvenience him. He did not know it would illuminate him. And by the time I was done gathering everything, I had uncovered enough to make one thing painfully clear. Leo had not devalued my love. He had underestimated my strength. Just as I finished saving the last document, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. You are making a mistake, Maritta. Stop digging. Someone knew exactly what I was doing. I woke the next morning with a strange kind of clarity. Not peace. Not anger. Something colder, sharper, almost metallic. I understood, finally, that Kai's words had not been a slip. They were a blueprint. He considered my love worthless because he believed I had nothing else to offer. He believed my presence was a convenience, and my absence would be a relief. He was wrong about both. Before leaving the house, I opened the drawer in his office again. The folder with the travel papers was still there. A printed itinerary, dates highlighted, the same hotel reservation I had seen before. Except now there was a new sheet. A handwritten packing list, written in Kai's blocky handwriting. At the bottom was one line that made my chest tighten. Gift for L. L. The woman he had said was just a colleague. The woman whose perfume I had smelled on his jacket. The woman he thought I was too naive to suspect. I folded the paper and placed it in my own notebook. Proof. Quiet, undeniable proof. I did not confront him. Not yet. Confrontation gives the guilty a chance to rewrite their story. Silence keeps them honest, at least on paper. I drove to my sister Marlene's house instead. She opened the door with one look at me and said, "What did he do?" I told her everything. Kai's words, the planned trip, the receipt, the hidden itinerary. She listened without interrupting. Her mouth pressed into a thin line. When I finished, she said, "Then you cannot stay there, Maritta. Not tonight. Not until you decide what to do." "I need a plan," I whispered. "Not a reaction. A plan." Marlene nodded slowly. "Then start by protecting what is yours." She brought out a file box. Documents I had nearly forgotten existed. My personal savings account statements. Copies of the house deed, showing both our names. Insurance records. Everything Kai had always brushed off with, "I handle our finances, do not worry about it." I felt a rush of cold anger. How convenient for him that I never looked. How convenient that he made sure I felt grateful for his management. By late afternoon, Marlene helped me move a few essentials into her guest room. As I unpacked, my phone buzzed with a message from Kai. "You were quiet this morning. Did I say something wrong?" Wrong? He had carved a crack into my heart and called it a conversation. I typed back, "We can talk tonight." Then I turned the phone face down. But 2 hours later he sent another message. "Going to be late. Work emergency." Work emergency was code. I knew that now. It meant he was with her. With L. I opened my notebook and stared at the list of evidence. It was growing. It was steady, but it still was not enough. Not for what I intended. I needed confirmation. Real confirmation. The kind that would survive denial and excuses. So I called a small private investigator recommended by Marlene's friend, a quiet man named Harris. I told him the dates of the trip, the hotel, the colleague's name. He asked only one question. Do you want photos or reports? Both, I said. My voice did not tremble. He exhaled like someone who had heard this story too many times. Then you will have what you need. That night, I lay awake in the small guest bed, staring at the ceiling. Every second of silence reminded me of Kai's voice saying my love was not valuable. The cruelty of it was not the insult. It was the certainty, the casual ease. He believed he could break me and I would stay. He believed I would accept whatever scraps of affection he decided to offer. He believed my absence would mean nothing. He was wrong. At midnight, a car pulled into Marlene's driveway. I sat up, heart pounding. She looked out the window and turned pale. It is him, she whispered. Kai is here. My phone buzzed, a message. Open the door. We need to talk. Now. He had found me. And he was not alone. I saw a second shadow behind him, a silhouette I recognized instantly. Elle was with him. I spent the next morning sitting at the small dining table, the same place where Julian once told me my love was not valuable. The insult still sat in the air like smoke. But now I finally understood the truth behind it. He did not want my love. He wanted my usefulness. My presence was convenient. My absence was profitable. So I started building the counterplan that would make my absence ruin him exactly the way he planned to ruin me. First, I listed everything he relied on me for. Bills, scheduling, insurance, investment oversight, communications with the landlord, renewal of the lease for the business space. All the boring but essential gears that kept his world spinning. He handled the show. I handled the machinery. Then I pulled out the binder where I kept every document he never bothered to read. Lease agreements, insurance forms, bank records, the small business registration file, the paperwork he laughed at saying, I do not need to look. You handle it better. He had no idea how true that was. When I saw the renewal clause in his business lease, my plan came into perfect focus. The next renewal date was in 2 weeks. Without my signature as the co-guarantor, Julian's business would be forced into a reassessment. The landlord already disliked him. One conversation from me would be enough to move the agreement in whatever direction I chose. My phone buzzed. It was Grace, my colleague and the only person I trusted with the truth. Are you ready? She asked. More than ready, I said. We met at a quiet cafe on the east side of town. She arrived with a slim folder under her arm. You asked for everything tied to his secondary account, she said, sliding it to me. I found payments he tried to hide. Transfers to a woman named Elise. And not small ones. I opened the folder. My breath trembled, but only for a moment. So this is the real reason my love was not valuable. Grace nodded. He was draining what he thought he could control. He underestimated the wrong woman. I closed the folder. Then this will be cleaner than I thought. We returned to my apartment and I laid out the next step. I will not confront him, I said. That gives him time to twist the story. I want him blindsided. I want everything to hit at once. What do you need from me? Grace asked. Witness statements. You saw how many times he had me handle documents that were supposed to be shared responsibilities. You heard him say he did not read anything. That helps establish neglect. She nodded. I will draft them tonight. By evening, I contacted the landlord. His voice was tired, annoyed. When I mentioned Julian's name, he let out a frustrated sigh. If he misses one more inspection, I am terminating the lease. He will, I said softly. He already has. I filed a written request to remove my name from the co-guarantee. Legally, they could not force me to stay on it. Without me, the reassessment would be catastrophic for Julian's business. He would need new financial backing. He would fail the credit check the moment they reviewed his personal accounts. I knew because I had monitored them all year. But the final step was the one that would break his plan completely. I contacted the bank. I would like to initiate a protective freeze, I said, on the joint account. The representative asked for verification. I provided it. The freeze went through. Julian would discover it when he tried to use the card on Friday, the same day he planned his weekend trip with Elise, the one he thought I did not know about. I sat down on my couch, the city lights flickering through the window. For the first time in a long while I felt calm. My plan was silent, legal, precise. No shouting. No chaos. Just consequences. Julian wanted a life without me. He was about to get exactly what he asked for. At midnight my phone lit up. A single message from Julian. Why is the account frozen? What did you do? And I smiled. Because the real question was what I would do next. The morning of my plan arrived with a strange stillness, as if the world itself was holding its breath. I stood in front of the courthouse, folder in hand, ready to submit the final set of financial disclosures that would expose Elijah's pretending. For weeks I had gathered statements, screenshots, recorded confirmations, and the quiet admissions he never realized he was making. I believed I was prepared for anything. I was wrong. As I stepped toward the doors, someone called my name. Maritta. I turned. It was her. Elijah's assistant, Julia. A woman who had always avoided my eyes, always seemed to carry secrets in her shoulders. Today she looked terrified. We need to talk, she said. He knows. My pulse tightened. Knows what? That you contacted the auditors, she whispered. That you asked for access logs. He thinks you did it to sabotage his business. He has already scheduled a meeting with the board. So this was the complication. The shift. The moment when a betrayer realizes the ground has moved under his feet. Julia pulled a flash drive from her coat. I should not be giving you this. But he made me file emails under his name. He made me adjust timestamps. He said there was nothing wrong with it. He said you would not understand. She swallowed. But if this comes out, I will be blamed. I took the drive gently. Why are you giving it to me? Because I heard what he told you, she said. That your love was not valuable. I thought, if he says that to you, what would he say about me? For a moment, I felt an unexpected stab of empathy. Elijah had a way of pulling people into his orbit with compliments and then keeping them small with precision. I was not the only one he had dimmed. Julia, I said. If you help me tell the truth, I will not let anyone use you as a shield. But you need to be honest with me now. What is he planning? Her eyes flicked to the courthouse doors. He is filing a claim before you can. He told the board he has evidence that you are mentally unstable and acting out of jealousy. She hesitated. And he has a letter. A letter. He wrote a statement, said the marriage was failing because of you. He plans to present it before you arrive. If he files first, the court will see you as retaliating. That was the moment the pivot hit me with full force. I had built a plan on steady ground. Now Elijah was trying to flip the story entirely. He had always been skilled at rewriting reality to cast himself as the victim. And he knew timing was everything. I straightened. Then I cannot go in through the front door. Julia blinked. What do you mean? I need time to reframe the narrative, I said. I cannot let him deliver that letter before my evidence is logged. I looked at the courthouse clock. He will try to enter at 10. It is already 9:40, she whispered. Then we move. I pulled my coat tighter and guided her toward the side entrance used by legal counsel. A guard recognized me from earlier visits and nodded us through. The hallway was long and cold. Every second felt heavy with risk. As we neared the clerk's office, Julia grabbed my arm. Wait. I turned. What is it? She pointed down the hall. Elijah was already there, standing with 2 board members, envelope in hand, smiling. He had arrived early. My plan was seconds from collapsing. I stepped back into the shadow of a doorway, heart pounding. I could not let him see me. Not yet. If he handed over that letter before my proof was filed, everything would tilt in his favor. The court would see his narrative first, not mine. Julia whispered. What do we do? We adapt, I said. Quiet revenge requires quiet timing. I watched him laugh with the board members, certain of his victory, certain that I was already defeated, certain that my absence meant surrender. He did not know that this time my absence meant strategy. As he started toward the clerk's desk, I reached into my folder and pulled out the emergency petition I had prepared in case everything fell apart. I handed it to Julia. Take this to the clerk. Right now. Under your name. Do not let Elijah see you. She hesitated only a moment, then nodded and slipped away down a side corridor. I watched Elijah raise the envelope, confident in its power. And all I could think was, in a few minutes the only story that will matter is mine. The clerk began to open Elijah's envelope. Then her phone rang. She looked at the screen. Her expression changed. And she said, "Stop. There is a new petition filed seconds ago. Everything pauses until it is reviewed." Elijah's smile cracked. He had just lost control. I stood at the back of the hall, hidden behind the column, listening to Lyle's voice echo across the room. He spoke with that same confidence he always used when he believed he had already won. He wore a tailored navy suit, a matching smile, and the charm that once fooled me into thinking he was decent. Now it only reminded me of everything he took for granted. Tonight was his Business Appreciation Gala. That was the official name. The truth was simpler. He needed investors to believe he was still stable, still talented, still in control. He did not know that every number he planned to present had already been quietly, legally dismantled. He did not know that his most important asset, the woman who ran the operational side of his company, had been absent long enough for the cracks to show. And he did not know that the woman he dismissed as not valuable was about to make her absence the loudest thing in the room. The lights dimmed as the projector screen illuminated behind him. Lyle tapped the remote. "Tonight," he announced, "I want to show you the growth we achieved this quarter." A graph appeared. The audience murmured approvingly. Except the graph was not the one he prepared. I had watched Eleanor, my attorney, plug a silent update into the system 2 hours earlier. The screen flickered. The confident upward trend he expected dissolved. Then the corrected numbers appeared. The true numbers, the numbers he had hidden for months. A drop. A steep one. A quarter's worth of mismanagement. Every error made after I left, every detail he failed to catch, every shortcut he took suddenly sat in glowing color behind him. Not sabotage, just truth. He froze. This is not the right. A man in the front row raised his hand. "Lyle, is this accurate?" Another investor stood. "You told us the quarter was your strongest yet." Someone else said, "Where is the operations director? She always clarified these reports." And that was the moment his face changed, the moment he realized my absence had not just been noticed, it had been lethal. He cleared his throat. "Maritta needed time away. We were adjusting." "Adjusting?" an investor repeated. "Because the system logs show she was the one who kept your margins stable. Without her, everything collapsed." The whisper spread through the room like fire. He gripped the podium. His hands trembled. "These numbers are wrong. Someone tampered with." But he stopped. Because behind the audience, Eleanor stepped forward, holding a sealed folder. "No one tampered with anything. These are the audited reports, Mr. Hayes, verified by the state." He turned, and when he saw her, the blood left his face. "And who are you?" an investor asked. "I represent Ms. Maritta Hale," she said. "She asked me to deliver these corrected financial statements before any further investment decisions were made. You deserve transparency." The room erupted in noise, questions, frustration, anger. Lyle stared at me then. He had finally spotted me across the room. His jaw tightened. His eyes were filled with the kind of fury that comes from losing control. I walked toward him, steady, calm, the same way he once walked toward me when he believed I needed him. He whispered, "You did this." I answered softly, "No. You did this when you decided I was disposable." His breath hitched. "You ruined me." "No," I said. "I simply stopped carrying the weight of both of us." The investors turned to me. "Miss Hale, can you confirm these reports?" "Yes," I said. "And I can confirm that every warning I gave him was ignored." Lyle slammed his hand against the podium. "This is revenge." I looked him directly in the eyes. "No. This is accountability." But before Eleanor could hand the folder to the lead investor, the hall doors opened sharply. A security guard walked briskly toward the stage. He leaned in and whispered something to the event coordinator. She blanched and hurried to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice shaking, "we need to pause the event. There is an urgent legal matter unfolding in the lobby." Eleanor's phone buzzed at that exact moment. She looked at the screen, then at me. Her expression shifted. "Maritta," she whispered, "you need to come with me. Right now." She turned the screen so only I could see, and there it was, a warrant, but not for Lyle. It had my name on it, and the accusation was something I never expected. When I walked into the hearing room, I felt every pair of eyes on me, not because I looked powerful, but because I looked calm, and calm is what guilt fears most. Dorian sat at the far table with his attorney, whispering frantically, tapping his foot like he wanted to run. He didn't look like the confident man who once told me my love had no value. He looked like someone who finally understood that the woman he underestimated had arrived with evidence, allies, and a plan he could not outrun. His attorney stood first. "Your Honor, we believe this is a misunderstanding." Judge Wilcox lifted a hand. "Then I trust Ms. Maritta will clarify." I placed the folder on the table. The sound echoed. The room went still. "Your Honor," I began, "this is the complete record of unauthorized withdrawals, hidden transfers, and the personal messages where Mr. Hale admitted his intention to remove my name from the business account." Dorian's head snapped up. "Those messages weren't supposed to be recorded," I finished. "I know." The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Hale, is Miss Maritta's claim accurate?" His attorney whispered urgently, but Dorian pushed him away. "She's manipulating everything. She left. She abandoned me. I stayed steady. I left because you told me my presence had no value. My absence proved otherwise." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Hale, did you or did you not transfer joint business funds into a personal account without notifying your partner?" He swallowed. His jaw clenched. Silence. That was all the judge needed. "We will take a brief recess before I issue a temporary ruling." Dorian stormed out first. His shoes hit the floor like gunshots. I followed at a slower pace, stepping into the hallway where his anger had already seeped into the air like smoke. He spun toward me. "You think this makes you righteous?" "No," I said. "It makes me prepared." "You ruined me," he spat. "You just stood there and let them humiliate me." I held his stare. "You humiliated yourself when you decided to erase me. Starting with my feelings, then my name, then my share of the business." He scoffed. "You never understood how much pressure I was under. You never understood how much support you already had," I said quietly. "But you threw it away because you confused control with love." His expression flickered, confusion, anger, maybe even shame. But shame was too fragile for him. He crushed it instantly. "You're going to regret this," he threatened. "If the judge freezes my accounts, everything collapses. The business, the deals, my reputation. All of those things collapse the moment you betrayed the person who built them beside you," I said. He stepped closer. "Too close. You think you're safe behind paperwork. But I still know how to win. I always win." Before I could respond, the courtroom assistant opened the door. "Party's back inside," she said. Inside, Judge Wilcox had already prepared the written order. She didn't drag it out. She didn't dramatize it. She just delivered it like truth should be delivered, clearly. "A full financial freeze," she said. "All disputed assets protected. All transfers blocked. All accounts monitored." Dorian gripped the table with white knuckles. And, the judge added, "Until further evaluation, Ms. Maritta will serve as temporary controller of shared business funds." The air left the room in a single silent gasp from Dorian. I did not smile. I only nodded. Because justice should not gloat. It should stand. When the session ended, I walked toward the exit. But halfway through the hallway, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You think today was the end. It was only the beginning. He's not finished." I looked around. No one. Just echoing footsteps fading behind me. The next message arrived instantly. A photo taken outside my house. Dorian wasn't going home. He was waiting for me. The morning after the confrontation felt unreal. I woke to silence, not the heavy kind that presses on the chest, but the strange, suspended quiet of a house that is finally telling you the truth. My first instinct was to check my phone. I expected messages, threats, apologies, something from Rowan. Nothing. Not a single missed call. But there was one new notification. A bank alert. Unauthorized access attempt blocked. My stomach tightened. Even without speaking to me, he was still trying to control what he thought he owned. I poured myself coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the steam curling upward. The chair opposite mine was empty, the way it should have been all along. Funny how an empty seat can feel like freedom. Just as I took a sip, my doorbell rang. I knew who it was before I opened it. Evelyn stood there, briefcase in hand, wearing the expression she only used when something new had surfaced. "We need to talk," she said. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. I pulled the last 48 hours of activity. Rowan didn't just try to access your accounts. He contacted your employer, your insurance agent, and the landlord. I stared at her. "Why?" "To claim you abandoned marital responsibilities," she said. "He's trying to build a narrative. One where you're unstable, emotional, incapable of making decisions." A cold wave washed over me. "He thinks if he paints me as irrational, no one will believe what he did." Evelyn nodded. "Exactly. It's a classic psychological reversal. But it won't work. We have proof. And we have timing. What he forgot is that every lie leaves a timestamp." Before I could reply, my phone lit up. Rowan's name on the screen. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Put it on speaker." I answered. "What do you want, Rowan?" His voice sounded smooth, controlled, the same tone he used whenever he was preparing a manipulation. "Maritta, we need to talk like adults. I don't know what Evelyn told you, but she's twisting things. You're acting emotional. I think it's best you come home." "I don't live there anymore." He ignored that. "You're making decisions you'll regret. Let's reconcile this quietly. You don't want people thinking you're unstable." Evelyn mouthed. "There it is." I kept my voice steady. "Rowan, you said my love wasn't valuable. Now you're discovering my absences. Everything you built, your image, your business, it depended on me being silent. I'm not silent anymore." His tone sharpened. "You think you're winning? You can't outsmart me." "I already did." He exhaled sharply, then hung up. Evelyn closed her briefcase. "He's panicking." He wouldn't have called otherwise. He's losing control of the narrative. "What happens next?" I asked. She looked at me with a steady calm. "Next comes the day he learns consequences aren't abstract." Before she left, she placed a folder on my table. "This is tomorrow's hearing outline. We're requesting temporary asset protection, a restraining order, and full access logs. Once the judge reads what he did, it will be game over." After she left, I sat in the quiet again. This time, the silence didn't feel strange. It felt earned. I walked through the house slowly, room by room. Every place he had once belittled me felt different now, like the walls themselves had been holding their breath. I opened the final folder Evelyn gave me, screenshots, bank logs, email threads. Each piece of proof was a reminder. I had not imagined the manipulation. I had not exaggerated the control. I had not overreacted. I was right. As evening fell, the house glowed warm with lamplight. I made dinner for myself, something simple, something quiet, and for the first time in years it tasted like peace. Then my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Rowan. It was the courthouse. A new filing. I opened it. My pulse quickened. Rowan had submitted a last-minute petition declaring himself the primary financial custodian of all marital assets, including mine. He wasn't done fighting. He was escalating. And tomorrow in court, he would face the one thing he never believed I could be. His equal. His opponent. And the woman who finally held the truth. The final attachment wasn't a petition. It was a witness list. And the first name on it was mine. When the courtroom emptied and the hallway finally fell quiet, I stood alone with the ruling in my hand. It felt weightless, though it carried every hour of fear, every night of silence, every insult he ever used to make me smaller. He once said my love was not valuable, but my absence? That was priceless, because the moment I left, the truth surfaced like a body breaking through deep water. Evan tried to catch my eye as the deputies led him past me, wrists cuffed, expression frantic. He kept repeating the same sentence. We can fix this. But I didn't stop. I didn't turn. I didn't salvage a man who only understood my worth when it slipped out of his hands. I stepped outside the courthouse. The sun hit my face gently, nothing like the harsh light inside. People walked by without knowing the war I just ended. A war I fought with records, emails, timestamps, not shouting or chaos. My revenge never needed rage. It needed clarity. The next morning, I woke alone for the first time in years. Not lonely, just alone. There was a difference. My home felt bigger, my breathing steadier. I made coffee without wondering whether it would be criticized. I opened the curtains without hearing him say the room was too bright. I finally lived in a place where my presence wasn't a burden. By noon, the bank manager called to confirm my accounts were restored and secured in my name only. Congratulations, Ms. Maritta, he said. You handled this with more grace than most. Grace. Something Evan always claimed I lacked. But grace was never my problem. His greed was. I cleared out the last reminders of him. Shirts he never wore, notebooks full of promises he never honored. The drawer where he hid the documents he thought I would never find. I placed everything in a box and left it by the door for the charity pickup. Not vengeance. Just closure. In the evening I wrote a letter, not to him but to myself. Promise. A declaration. A quiet vow that I would never shrink again to fit someone else's comfort. That night I slept peacefully, without checking for missing money, without listening for footsteps, without bracing for another cutting comment dressed as honesty. Justice was quiet. Freedom was quieter. Both were mine. If someone ever tells you your love is not valuable, watch what happens when you walk away. Watch how their world collapses without the stability you used to give for free. My absence cost him more than my devotion ever did. And that is the most lawful revenge of all. If you've lived through betrayal, emotional manipulation, or a partner who made you doubt your worth, remember my story. Your silence is not weakness. Your truth is not small. And your comeback can be the loudest thing you ever say.